Today we're going to talk about how to get into AI as a non-technical person. As the field has grown, I'm starting to see that a lot of people want to get started in AI but don't know how. I am, of course, somebody that is non-technical, but I've been in the AI field in the last year. So I'm going to tell you and explain to you how that works, and then we're going to cover how you can leverage yourself as somebody that is non-technical, and then finally, how to understand your value and then build your value as somebody that is using AI. Of course, my outlook on AI is that it's going to help augment people's abilities and save a lot of time, and so doing that provides a lot of value. And like I say in every video, you need to have the ability to do something before you can jump into AI and making that and mastering it. Let's start off by explaining how I did it. When I first started doing AI content creation, this was about the time when ChatGPT got really popular, really big, and I started making classes on AI, how to use AI. And as somebody that's non-technical, I thought about my background. So an important concept is to remember who you are and what your expertise is and what your background is. If your background is in academia and you've done a lot of research, potentially you're good at writing research papers or writing papers for asking for grants. Whatever it is that's in your specific niche, AI can probably help with that. So my particular niche and expertise was that I spent the last decade working in advertisement and marketing and content creation. So as I reflected on what my expertise is, I was thinking about which process and which steps in my content creation process, in my marketing process, that I can use AI to skip. As in, there might be a lot of redundant actions and things that I'm currently doing that would benefit a lot if I had used AI to help me get exactly what it is that I need done without me putting a ton of effort and energy into that. A good example would be generating images without having to go through a ton of stock images and photos and seeing what is exactly on my mind. And by learning Midjourney, I was able to just think what I needed for a specific advertisement image or a specific style of something. And don't get this confused with art, because as you're creating images with AI for my specific purpose, this isn't art. This is just supplementary material for the art part, the creative part, which is the classes that I was making, the videos that I was making, the things that I'm talking about. That was the creative part, and the imagery was just a supplement to that. So I used AI to create royalty-free images and to create images that were exactly what I wanted. And so this saved a ton of time and it saved a ton of money. And so I spent a lot of time creating images on Midjourney, and as I'm learning by putting hours in, I was able to record and teach people, and then I ended up teaching tens of thousands of students over Skillshare and Udemy, and if you're flying American Airlines right now, my class is up there as well, so you can find it on In-Flight Entertainment. And so the next step that I want to talk about is how to leverage yourself. I mentioned earlier that you need to know what your expertise is and to know specifically why you need AI. You can't just go in and be like, hey, write me an SEO article based on these keywords. That's not going to fly. That's very low quality use of AI. And frankly, I think that's junk. So if you were to write something, consider writing it yourself and then looking through it, thinking of which parts could be improved. So maybe you could use this whole article, put it into a language model like ChatGPT or Claude, and then ask it to give you some more reflections based on your thoughts, which was the paper that you just wrote. And then from there, you can ask for potentially substitutes in words, maybe a more precise words that would get your thought across better, or maybe you can substitute a part of a paragraph to explain a concept better, or you could ask what might be some concerns that a reader might have, so then you can address that as you are writing this essay or this piece of content, because most things are blog posts or Instagram posts or social media these days. So you need to understand which part of the process could be augmented by AI, because not everything can, at least at this moment. And if you want to augment every part with AI, you still need to understand your whole process so that you can break down individual pieces of that process and then improve it using AI. And the big word that comes to mind is automation. So as you're breaking down your process, what things could be augmented through automation. So for example, there's a lot of AI video editing softwares that transcribe your whole video, break down individual parts of the video, and then cuts it. Now that's gonna save you a ton of time, and that is automation in itself. Of course, some of these software isn't specifically catered exactly towards your style and your tone, and I think a lot of these softwares and applications could be improved, but that's just an example of how AI can be part of your current automation process. But if you want to get really simple, there are AI tools that specifically look for gaps and silences in the videos that are recorded. For example, this video that I'm recording that you're watching right now, there's a lot of times that I pause for a couple seconds as I think and gather my notes in here that I am explaining to you guys. There's a silence. And then as it runs through maybe Premiere Pro's silence detection, it will cut that automatically. And there's a ton of tools that'll do it these days. But back in the day, there was only a few limited tools. And for me, that was the beginning of AI automation. And so as you're thinking about getting into AI, how can you use it to leverage yourself as more than just one person? So consider it this way. Back in the day, as a social media person, you might have a job to write blogs, write Twitter headlines, write Twitter posts or emails. And now if you are able to break down every individual part of that and then figure out which part to implement AI in, what used to take 40 hours, like a whole work week to do, could now maybe be done in 3 days. And so you have 2 other days and a lot more time to be able to improve your content, to think of new ideas, and to just have more high quality production. And as a result of that, your value is more highly leveraged. Now, the next part is getting semi-technical. So you should know how a bit of the technical aspect of the certain AI that you're using works. So for example, I had to learn how Midjourney works, and it works through using diffusion models to build an image. And as I understand that concept, I'm more able to think of how I could improve my prompts so that it could understand what I want to get out from my head. So as you're trying to get into AI, you need to understand which part of the process that you're in and how that could be improved, and then what are the mechanisms behind it. So for example, if you're using ChatGPT mainly, you have to understand that you're prompting in a large language model and that this is done through transformers. With transformers, a lot of times the ChatGPT is just trying to predict what to give out to you using probability, and that if you gaslight it enough, it'll give you a wrong answer. And so you can't fully rely on these large language models just blindly, because it's not going to know exactly what you want. And that's why, as I said before, you need to understand your process so that you can break down certain parts of it and then use AI when it's necessary. I think in the future, AI is going to be able to have a lot of these different parts already broken down and understood, because as humans are constantly developing in this field, a lot more things could be optimized. Again, there's a lot of caveats to that because things might be optimized towards a certain user, but your use case might be completely different. So it's still very important to understand your workflow, your process, and how AI can help improve in that. For example, if I were trying to produce a film, I can't just go and ask AI to write me everything about this film. Story, the shots that I need to take, the colors, the angles, none of that is going to reflect what I have inside of me that I want to get out in a film. But instead, the approach to that is if I were to break down every single aspect of that. For example, I'll ask for some angles of a famous director or a group of famous directors that I like, maybe the color scheme that a lot of these directors use, or the color scheme of different types of film styles, the angles that are used that might supplement the story that I'm telling, and then the dialogue that I'm using, maybe certain words that might symbolize that I'm part of a certain age of film that I'm doing. Like for example, if I'm doing 1950s American films, then there might be certain words that would be more popular then that is not used these days that I haven't considered. So understanding the process, breaking it down individually, and then plugging it into the LLM and understanding the LLM, the mechanics of it, and how to word my prompts to give me the best results is ultimately going to help you know and work with AI significantly better than someone that just thinks, hey, I can go into AI, it's artificial intelligence, and have it figure everything out for me. And so to recap these concepts, as a non-dev, someone that's not technical, why might somebody pay you? And ultimately, that comes to the value that you provide. And if you understand your expertise and your process, and you're able to become multiple people, be more efficient, and to optimize your throughput, then you're able to bring more value to yourself. And AI is one of those magical tools that I think have been able to make people a lot more efficient in what they do and bring more value to what they can provide. And so that leads to my favorite thing about AI is that you can optimize your workflow with AI, because ultimately it all comes down to workflow. If you're working a job, people expect you to have something done in a week. But if you're able to understand your workflow, potentially you can have everything done in a day. For example, there are times where I would film everything in a day and the rest of the week would be spent editing and doing other things and considering other concepts that I want to teach. And so if you keep these things in mind, as a non-technical person, it's going to give you a big heads up and head start compared to somebody else that just thinks AI is some magical tool that will help you figure everything out, because it isn't at this point. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this, check out my courses, because that covers a lot about what I'm explaining and how to optimize your workflow. It's all linked below, and I'll see you in the next video.